Welcome to Shifting Gears, the show that catapults you back into the driver's seat of your life. Buckle up and prepare to check your mirrors as you shift from autopilot to the exhilarating journey of alignment with your host, Dana S. Diaz, the Power Shifter. Get ready to rev your engines and accelerate towards your true potential.
Welcome to Shifting Gears, and it's Christmas Eve. So if you are joining us, thank you. If you are celebrating the holiday, thank you for taking some time out. And just in case I move too close to the camera, I am wearing a sparkly dress. And yeah, from here up, that doesn't look very good, does it? But I wanted to honor, number one, Christmas, so it's sparkly and happy, but also our last guest, because today's episode, our Shop Talk episode, is the follow-up to the last episode with Megan Holly, who is a brand photographer and confidence coach. And her episode was entitled From What If to Watch Me. And it's all about moving from anxiety and worry to stepping into your true authenticity and that confident version of yourself. So in that respect, I decided to go sparkly again today, since I brought that to the first episode with her. And why not? You know what? Like we said a couple weeks ago when we had our episode, it was yucky out. It wasn't so much fun, but we can find our magic in every day. That's a message that Megan is always putting out there, because there is magic all around us. She uses crystals in all of her social media to look at the reflections they make on her walls and with her windows and everything. And so that's where the sparkle comes in. And certainly as I was putting this whole dress on, the sequins were reflecting everywhere. So I definitely was thinking of Megan. But moving into this idea of confidence, I think this is something most people can relate to, because the latest statistic that I was able to find is that 85% of people struggle with confidence. I mean, really think about that. Confidence. And what is confidence when we're going out into the world? To me, confidence means showing up as who you truly are, not worrying about what people think. And we had a big conversation about that in the last episode, about what people think, because usually that is, the source of why we do or don't do a lot of things, why we say or don't say, why we wear or don't wear certain things, because somebody else might have seen this red sparkly dress in their closet and said, oh, what will people think if I go on live looking like that? And you know what? It doesn't matter what people think. I feel sparkly and pretty today, and it's wonderful, and it's Christmas Eve, so why not? But it took me a long time to get here, because like Megan, I did grow up feeling more insecure and worried about what people thought of me, because I was made to believe that I wasn't perceived in a good light. And so I started to take on those beliefs myself. If you can relate, please stay tuned here, because we have a lot of information for you today. So 85% of people struggle with confidence. What does that mean for your life? Because it's not just like, oh, I have low self-esteem. This bleeds into everything, into every area of your life, every interaction, everywhere you show up. This is going to impact your relationships, obviously. You might self-sabotage. You might think you don't deserve certain relationships or friendships, or deserve maybe promotions at work. It definitely bleeds into your career. This is one of the main reasons people suffer from imposter syndrome, which is very prevalent in adults today. It affects 63% of adults. 63% of adults. And if you don't know what imposter syndrome is, look it up. But generally, it means that maybe you don't feel like you are worthy of a certain position or certain esteem, so to speak. You feel like maybe this is some other version of you sometimes. I mean, I know in my head, I've thought, really, I deserve that. I can do this. I'm worthy of that. But yes, we all are, but we have to find that worthiness in themselves. But we'll get there. So the thing that I think is really interesting is that this confidence issue, this low self-esteem issue, is most prevalent among young girls. And here on Women Thrive, obviously we are speaking mainly to women, but we were all young girls at once. And some of us are raising young girls, or we have nieces or neighbors, or, my son is, with a young girl. This is something that we need to take responsibility for, especially if we have overcome our worries about what other people think and have developed confidence in ourselves. We need to be watchful as older women. And I'm saying older like we're so old, but we need to be, watch over the younger women, the next generation coming up, to make sure that we build them with confidence. And just on an aside here, this is something that I do see a lot on social media, because they say that is where it starts with young girls. Young can mean any age to you, but I'm looking at preteen to teenage years. Those are the years that are really impactful on a young woman growing up. And we are all on social media and we see what's out there, and we have to be very careful, because one of the things that I've noticed for many years is, we're so quick when, let's say, for example, I'll use an example from my life. I remember a few years ago, a cousin of mine put up a picture of her daughter, preteen girl. I think she's beautiful, but regardless, she put up a picture, and it was a beautiful picture. And all the comments, I mean, there were dozens of comments. Oh, she's beautiful. Look how pretty. But it was all about her physical appearance. Every comment, gorgeous. And we all love that, right? I mean, who doesn't want to be told that they look pretty or that they look nice in a picture? Regardless, of what they believe about themselves, we want to be told that, right? But think about that. Really think about that. Every comment was about her physical appearance. What does that say to a young girl? What does that say? Because I'm going to tell you what it says to me. It recalls my childhood. In my childhood, and this is something I will be speaking about in the Women Thrive Summit in March. It's part of my signature talk. Is part of what I was made to believe about myself was that I had to be skinny or nobody would love me. I had to be pretty or nobody would love me. That was ingrained into my head in the words that were spoken to me in my childhood home, in the way that I was treated, the fact that nothing I ever did was acknowledged. My successes, my achievements were diminished or dismissed altogether. The only thing that anybody ever noticed about me was that I was pretty. And again, we like compliments, but to a young girl, that's what I went through most of my life, believing that that's all I was worth, particularly to a man, was that I was pretty. And it makes me really sad that I spent most of my life believing that. And thankfully, I am now married to a man who actually rarely tells me that I look pretty or, that I look nice wearing something. He comes in and says, how's my little writer? How's my speaker today? He tells me how smart I am. He tells me how on point I am, or my perceptions are a little different maybe than most people's, but he acknowledges parts of my character, my integrity, my, things that make me me, because all this can change, right? It can change, and it does change over time. It can get better. It can get a little worse as we age and need a few more creams on our face. But again, I go back to my preteen cousin. That picture goes up on Facebook or whatever it was, and everybody telling, making the comment, oh, look how pretty, how cute, how gorgeous. Maybe we need to start thinking about how we speak to our young girls. And that's all I'm saying. Maybe acknowledge something different about them. It's okay to think they're pretty, and it's okay to compliment them, but how about we acknowledge the things that they're good at and be specific, not just tell another woman, or whether it's family or not, it could be your friend, not just to say you're amazing, you're great, oh, I love you, but to say something specific like my husband does with me. I'm so proud of you for the thing you did today, that for that person that you talked to, that you helped through that situation. You're so insightful. You're so smart. That's how we need to start talking to our young women, right? Right? Because they're going to grow up and be the next generation that leads the generation after that. And we want them to be strong, and we want them to be genuinely proud of who they are and stand tall in who they are authentically, right? Because that's what we all strive to do. That's why we're here. If you're here watching this show, if you are interested in mindset and self-development, you want to be better. So we're not just going to make ourselves better, we're going to make the next generation better. So think about that. The next time you see things on social media, the next time you are among, your family, your friends, be careful what you say to other people. But this leads into our next thing. Why do we have low self-esteem? Why do we lack confidence? Why do 85% of people struggle with confidence? Because of what's in our head, what we tell ourselves about who we are and what we deserve and what we're capable of. And I want you to think about that for a minute, honestly. Think about, we have millions of thoughts go through our head every day. Think about the last one that went through your head about yourself. You know how many people I hear even going about my day, if I'm among people that I hear, they're doing something and I say, oh, that's so stupid, and they deprecate themselves like that. Oh, I should have known better. I don't know why I thought that would work. Why do people say that to themselves? That's shame. They're shaming themselves. But the interesting thing, I have a ton of notes here. Something that Megan said, and I thought it was a funny way to put it, because we have to sometimes laugh at our at our trauma and our mental health. She said, what is your mind gremlin saying to you? Because that's what she calls that negative self-talk in her head, her mind gremlin. And it really is true, because if you remember the 1980s movie, The Gremlins, Gizmo, who I have a cat named Gizmo, by the way, because he's adorable, cute, and fuzzy, just like Gizmo in the movie. Gizmo had rules. It was sweet and fuzzy and cute and lovable and wouldn't harm a fly. But you had to be careful what you fed it, and be careful, that you didn't feed it him after midnight, and all the rules, right? Because if you broke those rules, if you fed it the wrong thing, or you gave it, I forgot what the rules were, but it was something about the water and the food, depending what you fed him and when you fed him, he would turn into a gremlin, right? And the gremlins were those nasty lizard looking creatures that just went and tore up the whole town and literally setting everything on fire and destroying everything. And it sounds funny, but that's exactly what that mind gremlin is that Megan Holly was talking about on the show last time, is the gremlin in our mind that we feed. We feed all this negative stuff, right? We feed it our own thoughts. We feed it the words that other people say about who we are, or the words they say to us, all those insults, those diminishing remarks, those passive aggressive comments. That's what we're feeding our inner gremlin, and that gremlin can turn into that nasty little lizard creature and take on a whole new life of its own. And it just spreads from there. And really, the mind gremlin is a nice reference to the part of our brain called the reticular activating system. And I've talked about this many times before. The reticular activating system, short term for that is RAS, R-A-S. Its only job in our brain is to filter through the approximately, I believe they said 11 million stimuli that we take in every day. And that is the things we hear, the things we read, the things we see, the things we touch, feel, all your senses, right? So 11 million on average in a single day for every one of us. And your reticular activating system only filters through about 24 out of 11 million. You know why? Because your brain does not want to work that hard. Your brain is trying to operate your whole body, all your organs, your muscular systems, keep your heart pumping, your lungs going, all the stuff, right? We're very complicated beings, but your brain is in charge of all that. It doesn't want to give too much thought to all the thoughts coming in your head. So the way I look at the reticular activating system is like a file cabinet. You have all these files. So there's a file, we all have that file, I'm sure, that says I'm not good enough. And, you know, maybe there's a file that says, oh, this, you know, this person likes me or whatever it is, but that I'm not good enough file, that's the one we have to be careful of, because every time something in our environment supports or reiterates that idea, whatever this thing is that we think in our heads that maybe somebody told us and it's stuck with us, your reticular activating system just throws it in that file, because that's easy to file, right? There's other stuff that comes in, but it doesn't know what to do with that. It doesn't have a file for those things, so it just lets them go. The 24 stimuli out of 11 million every single day on average are the only ones that are retained. And yes, guess what? They are the ones that support all that negative self-talk going through your head. So does self-talk matter? Absolutely. And self-talk, I'm actually talking about the thoughts running through your head. And if you're like me and you talk to yourself, you know, I say we when I'm talking about me, but you know, me and all the voices in my head, I guess, having a conversation, having that board meeting, we sometimes perpetuate that negative self-talk. We have to watch what we give energy to, what we are feeding our brains, what we are fueling about who we are and what we are able to accomplish and what we deserve to have. It's really important. So I want you to think right now, what is a negative self-thought that you have had, that you have carried with you? Because they often stem from childhood. It could be that little kid Billy at recess one day in 4th grade, you know, told you had big ears or something. It could be something your mother or father or one of your siblings repeatedly told you that just, even though you didn't believe it or you didn't want to believe that about yourself, you just internalized it and you came to believe it as a truth. Because it's the other thing about our brains, you know, we have to remember our brains do not work to make us happy. They work with what's familiar to us. So all these things that are told to us, it only takes hearing something 2 to 7 times to actually believe it as a truth. Our brain will take little evidence. If it hears it a few times, it begins to believe it's truth. And then the more it's repeated, it's actually a psychological term for it is called the illusory truth. It can be completely false. There could be evidence to support that that is not true at all. But if your brain is consistently hearing it, it believes it to be a truth. So your reticular activating system will only accept any evidence to support it and completely dismiss anything that does not. And that's a scary thing, because when you think about what people have said about you, we all, every single one of us, and Lord knows I'm having this actively happen in my life now, every one of us has had at least one person, if not many, say something, spread some gossip or rumor about us that is not true, right? And it hurts because you know it's not true. You know it's a lie, but it's repeated by so many people that all of those people actually believe it's true. And so it's not just our own perpetuation of these things, it's other people's perpetuation of it, which then, you know, we absorb and our brain kind of goes there. So, you know, by default, we have low self-esteem, we have anxiety about what people think of us, we have low confidence, which is what this is all about. So back to the mind gremlin. What is your mind gremlin saying to you? What does your negative self-talk say to you about who you are? And is it true? Because that's really the question. Is it true? You know if it's true or not usually, but sometimes you don't. You know, again, going back to the first example I gave, because of the things that were said to me and the things I was visually experiencing, witnessing in my environment, in my home growing up, I really did believe that I had to be skinny. I was watching food weighed, you know, only certain number of ounces. And if I took a second helping of anything, oh, do you really need that? You're going to get fat. If you eat that toast, those carbs are going to go to your hips. and the working out was ridiculous. The exercising in my house growing up, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it was reiterated to me in so many ways. It's all I saw was what I put in my mouth. Got to get exercise out. Oh my gosh, I ate too much of this. I better go run extra 5 miles to get those calories off because I was so terrified of gaining weight. But is it true? Is it true that nobody would love me if I wasn't skinny? No, it's not true because I have gained weight, I have lost weight, and guess what? There are people, well, people come and go in your life, but people still love me, people still like me. It's okay. And fortunately, if you surround yourself with people that aren't going to love you just because of how you look, then you don't have to worry about that, do you? Right? We just all want to be healthy, but that's a mom lecture for another day. So, looking at this confidence, it does start with what you tell yourself. And usually that is sourced in what other people have told you, right? And it also leads into where people get the ideas of what they have told you. Well, what other people tell you is usually based on their own experiences, based on what society has told them, right? Because our parents had some idea about something that then we kind of absorbed from them, and then we pass it on, or maybe we choose not to because we feel strongly about it, to our children. And that's where these generational patterns come in. And where I see a lot of this, but I'm enjoying the way it's being dismantled. uh, I'm Gen X, but the older Gen Xers and up to the baby boomer generation, we definitely heard a lot. Our parents and grandparents, all you'd ever hear, teachers, church members at school, this constant phrase. And please tell me in the chat if you remember hearing this. You should be ashamed of yourself. Anyone ever heard that? Yeah, I bet a few of you have. You should be ashamed of yourself. Or you'd be sitting somewhere and somebody would walk in. I remember there was one mom, one of my friend's mothers growing up. She was from Europe and she was very, very secure in who she was. But here in America, at least where I lived, it's very conservative and they didn't like her short skirts. They didn't like her going braless. They didn't like her having a tan and tanning nude, all these things. I thought she was delightful. I absolutely adored her because she was real and she didn't care what people thought. And I actually admired that very much about her. And she loved her body, she loved herself. And it didn't worry her what people were saying behind her back. But every time she would walk into a room, into an environment, it was always all eyes on her and she should be ashamed of herself. And that's the thing. Why do we have to shame other people? Now, that generation, that was very big. Now, the Gen Xers, my generation, we definitely heard it. We felt it. I don't know that I ever really said that and repeated that. I certainly didn't with my son. I think maybe we had different verbiage, but I look at the generations after us. You have the millennials and there's Gen Z, Gen Y, there's all kinds of generations coming up. I can't remember them all, but I love looking at like my cousins and other friends, kids and family members that are growing up now, that are in their teens and 20s and 30s, and how much more confident they are than our generation and the baby boomer generation, because they do not accept that shame. They are more, well, I don't know. We won't get into a generational discussion. I don't want to say they're this or that. But I see, especially with women, like let's go back to the body image that I struggled with. I think a lot of us that grew up in the 80s remember the thing was being skinny as you could not be skinny enough. Whereas I see the younger generation now, they are very comfortable in their skin. And it doesn't matter. They don't exercise like we did. They don't try to count calories. They aren't trying to lose weight and take diet pills and do the Suzanne Summers Thigh Master thing. Like we were so obsessed, some of us, with this idea that we had to be skinny, but we have healthy girls growing up now. And I love that because we should all want to be healthy and not skinny. Skinny is not always healthy. It's nice if you're toned. We like to be toned, right? But anyway, body image is a big thing, but back to character, so we go to what do we tell ourselves about who we are and what we're worth? What have other people told you and what has society told you? So it really does matter, all of these things, because those three things combined together are what develop your self-confidence and your sense of who you are and what your place is in this world, which actually exudes from you in every action, inaction, and reaction that you have, right? It's how you show up in the world, how you present. Because when you walk in the room, I think they say that it only takes somebody 2 to 3 seconds the first time they meet you to develop a sense of who you are or who they think you are, so to speak. I would argue that most people don't even know who they are. So for somebody else to presume who you are is kind of weird. But either way, everybody does deserve to show up in the world the way that feels good to them. That's another point that Megan Holly came up with. I almost said Megan Kelly. I've been watching too many political things. I think there's so much politics going on. But Megan Holly said everybody deserves to show up in the world the way that feels good to them. And I agree. And I would imagine that everybody watching this also agrees. You deserve to show up as you, right? That anxiety, that what would people think, what would that person think, or I feel ashamed, that shows up when we are not our authentic selves. When we are in situations where we pull back, we put that guard up, right? We keep people at a distance. We don't express ourselves as we would with people we are comfortable with. And I think all of us, to some extent, hold back a little bit initially in situations, kind of feel out, the room or the new people. But don't we all love that person that can walk in their room and it doesn't matter if they've met you or they've known you 20 years and they're the same? That, my friends, is authenticity. That is a genuine person who knows themselves and doesn't care whether people like them or don't like them, because they like themselves enough to show up without any of those masks on, without a guard up. That is authenticity. That is confidence. Now, we don't all have that, or we all have that at different levels. I definitely have had to work on that myself, and I feel actually very good where I'm at now. It's taken me a long time to go from a people pleaser to understanding that, you know what, I'm not for everybody, and I'm okay if people don't like me. I much prefer if people do like me, but I'm not going to change who I am or compromise my morals and values to be liked or accepted by any certain person or group of people. And I think that that is the primary reason why so many people struggle with this self-esteem and this confidence, because specifically in family systems, I mean, that's sort of, where we originate, as far as how we show up in the world is how we show up in our family. And when our families, raise us to believe that this is your place, this is who you are supposed to be, whether we are told that directly or we indirectly see that through nonverbal interactions or just by observing how everybody else interacts, we do get a sense of who we are supposed to be. But that's supposed to be, that's another should. And well, I have a thing about the word should. I think it should be removed from language altogether, because should and shame are the same. I've said it for years. Should and shame are the same, because to say somebody should do something or I should this, because what I often hear is you should da 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 because that's your family. You should da 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 because, and that puts an obligation and expectation on somebody to diminish themselves in order to do what somebody else thinks they should do. Now, mind you, I'm not saying go do whatever you want to do. I mean, within the bounds of we have to follow laws and things like that. But as far as expressing yourself, for example, if I was to wear this red sequin dress to the grocery store right now, I bet I'd have a lot of people not necessarily shaming me, but I'd get looks, I'd get comments because, ooh, that doesn't conform to what's normal. You're supposed to show up at the grocery store, well, some people go in their pajama pants and hey, that's their thing. I don't care, but I shouldn't care, nor should they, if I want to go in a sequin dress, right? It should be okay. It should be okay and here I go using the word should, to show up however you want to show up without having to worry about anybody even noticing that you are different. Because see, that's the thing. That is what people are scared of, is being different. Because if you don't conform, then you're afraid you won't be accepted. But then I would turn that around, or at least the way I have dealt with it in my life is, but do I want to be accepted by people who don't want me to be me? Have you thought of that? And I hear people saying it already, but that's my mother, but that's my brother, but that's my whoever. Yeah. And it would be nice if the people that were blood related to you did love and accept you exactly as who you are. It would be nice if they didn't judge you, but some of them do. And they are just people like you and like anybody else in this world. We're all human and we're all on our own journey. So I'm not about to tell people that they, need to be this way or that. I am just talking to you directly. If you are interested in learning how to be more confident, you do have to learn to release the idea that you have to be what other people want you to be. Because if you live your life being who other people want you to be, then you're not living a life that's truly yours. And I did that for the first 40 some years of my life. And I'm going to tell you, it didn't feel good. It didn't feel good. Depression, that's what that comes from. Not being authentic. I guarantee you. We have all these studies and things, and I'm not trying to say that I have, solved the problem of depression. I'm not a medical doctor, but think about it. Why are people so depressed? Why is there such a prevalence of anxiety even? Because people are worried about what other people think. So they subdue themselves. They put themselves in those little boxes. I always think of those "my name is" labels where you're supposed to write your name. And I see, when I see people call themselves broken or, they can't, people put all these labels on themselves because their family has put them on them. I say tear the labels off. Be whoever the hell you want to be. Be who you are. How about that? Because if you're who you are, if you're comfortable in your own skin, you won't have that unease, that emotional unease, that distress that you feel. And sometimes it goes to your stomach. Sometimes you feel it in your throat. Like you almost feel like your throat is closing because you're suppressing your emotions. You feel suffocated. You feel stifled. It's because you're not being true to yourself. You're being true to what other people or some specific person has decided who you should be. And that's not living your life. And that's why you're not confident. And that's why you worry about what other people think. And that's probably why you have anxiety or any kind of depression. And that is something that Meg and Holly discussed on the last episode, from what if, the what if I could, be more confident, because she had struggled with anxiety and I have too. And I don't think that there's any shame in that. I think that people need to start opening their eyes to the fact that anxiety is just a normal bodily response to something doesn't feel right in my environment. But the anxiety isn't coming necessarily from the other people. It's coming from your own worry about what other people will think, right? Right? You're worried about what other people will think if you wear this out to that certain thing, or what people will think. I use this example all the time, but it's like when I go to any kind of wedding or any kind of social event where there's a dance floor and a DJ and a band, the music starts and I'm always up there. I kick my shoes off right away and I'm up there and I start dancing. And even my husband, who I love dearly, but baby boomer, is, oh, you're taking your shoes off and oh, nobody's dancing yet. So he won't come with me because nobody else is out there. I don't care. I go out, I dance barefoot, I do my thing, I'm having a good time. And I can see other people sitting there. I can see the people looking on and laughing at me, people mocking my movements, and that's fine. That's on them if that's what they feel comfortable with. If they don't feel secure enough to go and just have a good time, that's on them. No judgment, no shame, but I'm my own person. I like to dance. I love music, and I just like to have fun. And so I'm going to do it. I'm not going to be that person that sits on the sidelines like those 7th grade dances. Remember, where all the boys would be on one side of the gym and the girls on the other side, everyone's standing against the wall and they're playing music, but nobody wants to be that first person, that would go and ask somebody to dance because, oh my gosh, it would be a thing. And what would everyone think? And we have to break that pattern. We have to just be ourselves and be that person who leads other people and opens it up. It's kind of like something else you could relate to. When you're at a family gathering or an event and like everybody's kind of whispering about, oh, I really want to get out of here, or it's time to leave, it's getting late, it's starting to snow, it's starting to rain, whatever it is. People are starting to get, anxious about they want to get going, they want to end the event or leave the party, whatever it is, but nobody wants to be the first one. And so once you see one person start to say goodbye, get their coat, get their whatever, you start seeing a flood of people leave, right? So that's what I say when I say lead that revolution, because somebody needs to be the one to open the door to say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to be me. I'm inviting you to be you. It is safe to be whoever you are here. Nobody's going to laugh. Nobody's going to judge. If they do, if they happen to, that's fine. That's for them to, take issue with it, and that's their own journey. But I do want to talk a little bit more about changing the direction you're going. If you have related to any of this, I really want you to consider, how you do show up in the world. Are there any certain people or situations or environments where you feel like you can't be who you truly are? I mean, now I am not suggesting that if you work in some, very conservative office where you're expected to wear a suit, I don't want you to come in with like the full sequin Lion King jacket on one day. Although, why not? But just, it's interesting to me how we all have environments that we have a little anxiety about going into, and that we start to think, oh, I don't feel good about it, or I can't show up as me in that place. And I'm just inviting you to be curious about why that is. Is it the people? Do they judge you? Have they said anything to you about the way that they perceive you? I know I have had that happen with a certain group of people that I mean, even just knowing the day of knowing that I am going to be around them, I start sweating and I have to take a lot of deep breaths and just, keep telling myself I'll be fine, I'll be fine. But I do have to work a little harder to open myself up and keep that guard down, to be okay around them. Because I think certain people still do affect us, especially as we are developing this authenticity that we so want and that confidence we want to have doing the thing. But it's really hard when you do come up against very strong-willed and strong-minded people who, as in my case, have actually come straight out and actually have very directly expressed their dislike But we have to tell ourselves that it's okay, because I think, part of living in this world and part of life itself, whether it's with family or in work situations or just in general in public, not everybody's going to agree. Not everybody's going to like each other. Not everybody is going to have the same morals and values or beliefs about how things, here we go again with that word, should be. But can we all get along? Yeah, we can, actually. And how do we do that? With respect. You have to respect yourself enough first to be able to respect other people, to be able to go into those situations, respect that they have the right to feel how they feel, that you don't have to prove yourself, that you don't have to diminish yourself, that you don't have to explain yourself, and you don't have to have an attitude towards them, even if you know that they don't like you or they don't like something you do or whatever it is. You can still respect yourself enough to hold yourself with grace and have your same charisma and just show up as who you are. Be kind to yourself and to them and to the situation by not, oh, sorry, my microphone fell off, by not causing any more drama than there needs to be. Because the thing is that not everybody's going to get along, but you have to be okay with you. And that's something that we don't talk about enough when we talk about self-talk and healing and self-development. We don't talk about our relationship with ourselves enough, because people are so concerned about their relationships with other people, their interactions, the dynamics. I know when people come to me, the big thing they say is, well, this person said this to me, or this person did that. Yeah, and people are going to continue to say this and do that. But your relationship with yourself has to be solid enough. Your confidence in yourself has to be solid. Your self-esteem has to be intact. You have to know who you are, who you truly are, enough that it doesn't matter what people say or what people do to you, because all that matters is what you believe about who you are. So let me give you an example of this, and I am borrowing it from Tony Robbins. I'm sure you all know who he is, but it is a perfect example. So I saw a video of him, Tony Robbins, speaking to, of course, a large audience. And he went up to one of the women in the row in front of him and said, "I don't like your blue hair." And she looked confused. And he said, "What do you think about that? I don't like your blue hair." And she's like, "I don't have blue hair." She's brunette like me. She's like, "I don't have blue hair." And he says, "So what do you feel about that then, that I'm saying I don't like your blue hair?" She's like, "I don't think anything because I don't have blue hair." At the point, if you don't believe something about yourself, then it doesn't matter what people say, right? Or what people think. Because if somebody told me they don't like my blue hair, okay, good for you. I don't have blue hair. Not my thing, right? Not my problem either. Even if I did, it's okay. You don't have to like it because it's mine. That's what my answer would be. Somebody could say to me today, "I don't like your red sparkly dress." And I'd say, "Okay, well, you don't have to because you're not the one wearing it. Red is my favorite color. I like sparkles. It's Christmas Eve and it makes me feel cute and pretty. And this is what I'm doing today." So, you have to really hone in on why you feel the way you feel. Where was that negative self-talk, that negative self-thought about yourself, where was it sourced from? I joked about it being Billy at recess in 4th grade, but really, where is the core of it? You have to get to the root of where that originated so that you can start delving into, is that really true? Because when it comes down to it, anxiety, depression, what people think, the low self-esteem, the lack of confidence, you know what it's based in? It's based in fear. Fear. But you have no fear if it's not true, right? You know what they say about fear. Fear stands for false evidence appearing real. Yeah. And it goes back to your brain and your brain's laziness when it comes to your stimuli and how it likes to just file the things it already knows or it thinks it knows. So a lot of the time, your brain really doesn't know a whole lot about you, right? And no, it certainly has ideas about other people. We have files in our brains that we keep about all the different things that have happened in our life and that were said. But what about ourselves? Create a new file. Can you do that? If you're one of those people that has that I'm not good enough file in your head, can you create a new file that says I am good enough? Actually, I'm more than good enough. I wonder what would happen if you created that file in your head. Because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen because I have created an entire course based on this. Yes, shifting gears. There is now a course of the base level on my website, by the way, if you want to go to danasdiaz.com. But the more in-depth course with coaching is coming out in the next month. But that is what we do. That is how you heal. That is how you overcome and all the things in life, all the adversities, and become who you truly are and get the life you truly want. You create your reality by rewiring what you believe. And all it takes is just creating that new file that says, I'm freaking fabulous. I am amazing. I am more than enough. And watch how your brain, your reticular activating system is going to start saying, oh, we have a file for that now. Okay, let me see what I can take from the stimuli in our environment, from all the things being said to us, all the things happening around us that support that. And then more of those things happen and more of those things become the focus in your mind. And then you start believing it. And then you start realizing, oh my gosh, I really am good enough. I really can do this. I really am confident. I really am capable. Can you imagine? I actually want you to take a second. I want you to imagine how different your life might be if you had confidence, if you felt good enough, if you felt deserving and capable and competent, if you were living the life that you actually want to be living and not the life you feel like you're stuck in. Can you see that? Can you envision yourself being that person that walks in the room? Maybe all eyes are on you, but maybe you're like me, wearing the sparkly dress and walking into the grocery store and picking bananas because that's what we're doing today. It's an amazing feeling when you're not carrying all those extra burdens of what other people think. Because I don't know about you, but it took me a long time, but I finally got into the driver's seat of my life. That's what shifting gears is all about, getting back into the driver's seat. Because for most of my life, I was in the passenger seat or the back seat, letting everybody else drive where I was going and who I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to be doing. And I wasn't happy. I get car sick too in real life. So, I mean, I could imagine mentally that did make me a little sick, my mental health and my physical health. They're definitely combined. They're correlated and neither was in a good place. But since I got back into the driver's seat and I start moving in the direction that I wanted to go, ooh, amazing things have happened. Amazing things have happened. Things that I never imagined, things that I never expected, things that I didn't even know I wanted, but they're happening and they have happened and they're still happening. And I know it makes me excited to think about the future, but even more so than the future is the now, because one thing that I think we can all see now that we're closing out another year is how time passes. People I know a few people that have passed away recently, and everybody feels sad and starts reflecting on their own lives and the things they haven't done, the regrets they have, relationships that, fell to the wayside, or, maybe that they shouldn't give as much time to as they, had thought they should. But one thing that we don't have a guarantee of is time, right? So I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. Every breath, every single breath you take is an opportunity, because this breath that I just took right now, this second, this moment right now, it's gone already. It's already passed. And you can create and build and support and encourage yourself and others. Or you can use that time to destroy and diminish and suffer and cause the same harm and suffering to others, the same as you're doing to yourself. And I don't know about you, but I think it's much nicer and much more fun. It's a much better life when you're smiling and when you're feeling joy and you're open to it. Because you know what? Bad things are going to happen. Things are going to happen that you don't want to happen. Life happens to all of us. People are going to say those nasty things. People are going to do those awful things. But the only thing that matters is how you feel about yourself and what you decide to do with the time you have here. And the only time you're guaranteed is the time you're standing in right this second, right now. So, with that said, you know me, you know I love hearts, you know I love love. I'm going to invite you to love yourself enough to love every moment that you have here on this earth, to love every person around you that supports you and is kind to you and encourages you, and to love the ones that don't too. Love them enough, even if you don't want to associate them, you can love them enough not to wish them harm and to wish them healing at some point, to hope that they decide to choose better for themselves and for the time that they have here. But you can choose to smile and to invite joy in your life and to create that joy. Because I know some of us on this holiday are by ourselves, and some of us don't have families, or some of us have lost loved ones, or maybe whatever adverse circumstances could be reason not to feel joy. I understand, I validate you, I see you, and I hear you. But you can still experience joy. You can still smile and hold all that stuff close to your heart, but still live a joyful life. So, with that said, I hope that you found this episode helpful. We will go ahead and wrap this up. I love you all. I thank you all so much for your support. I hope you all put on a sparkly dress or whatever makes you feel good, however you want to show up in the world. Just feel good. Please, if you have not watched the previous episode with Megan Holly, go ahead and do that. Follow Megan on all social platforms at Megan Holly Creates. I hope you will also follow me. I tend to hang out on Instagram at dana.s.diaz. You can also find me on every platform as well. But please go to my website, dana.s.diaz.com. You will find the link for the base level Shifting Gears course right at the top of the screen. Costs less than a lunch out. It's a good invitation to just kind of get your mind rolling. I call it getting back on track to your biggest comeback, because we have a new year, and people, this was the year of the snake. This is the year of shedding all those things that don't serve us, including those negative self-talk, those mind gremlins, right? And we need to get rid of those, because the year of the horse is just a week away, and the year of the horse is going to be so exciting and so amazing if you choose to make it that way. So Love yourself enough to do that. Choose you. If you are celebrating this holiday, happy holidays. I know we have had some friends celebrating Hanukkah. So happy Hanukkah to those that celebrated that. Merry Christmas to everybody, wherever you are in the world. If you're not celebrating anything, just know we love you. We're glad you were here. Again, check me out at danasdiaz.com and have a beautiful, beautiful last week of the year. Make it amazing. Mwah.
Thanks for tuning into Shifting Gears, where transformation isn't just talk, it's a conscious shift into the best and happiest version of you. Until next time, enjoy the open road. And if today's episode inspired you, be sure to like, share, and follow so you never miss what's coming next.